Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Vaishnava Sadachara course. I seek the blessings of all the exalted and senior Vaishnavas who are participating in this course. I don't feel myself qualified to speak to such an august assembly, and all the more so to speak on a topic of Vaishnava Sadachara, which requires an exalted standard of behavior. At the same time, as a service on the instruction of my seniors, I will try to speak something on this topic, and therefore I fervently seek the blessings of all of you so that I can render this in the mood of service for the purification of my heart and for the glorification of the Lord. So, we will be discussing this topic in 8 sessions, and the first session is entitled The Importance of Vaishnava Sadachara, especially for a leader. Now, when Srila Prabhupada was asked, how can we identify your devotees? At different times he gave different answers. One of the answers he gave was that they are perfect gentlemen. That they are perfect gentlemen. And by extension you could say perfect gentlemen and ladies. So, now this is a very significant definition, because we could say that Prabhupada wanted his followers to be pure devotees of Krishna. And devotees of Krishna are characterized by constant chanting of the holy names, constant remembrance of Krishna, immersion in Krishna's service. Prabhupada could have described any of the devotional symptoms of an advanced devotee. And Prabhupada does describe them at times, but there are times when he also describes the characteristics in terms of what people in general can appreciate. So generally, a gentleman refers to a person who is well behaved, and well behaved in terms not which are directly devotional, but in terms that are appreciable by people who are not even seeing from a devotional perspective. So humility, gentleness, sensitivity, courtesy, these are all qualities which are associated with gentlemanly behavior, and Prabhupada emphasized them too. And we will see a large part of Vaishnava etiquette centers on cultured gentlemanly behavior as the foundation or the setting in which devotional exchanges can take place. So those devotional exchanges can be between devotees, or they can be between general people. But either way, the exchange between the people is framed in a very appropriate behavior. And so that behavior which frames the exchanges is the purview of Vaishnava Sadachara. The exchanges themselves of course come in, and the setting of those exchanges also comes in. So now the Chaitanya Charitamrita talks about how Maryada Rakshana, the protection of Maryada, the word Maryada which is used in vernaculars often used to limit Maryada Ullanghan, Maryada Vyatikraman we say. That's in Sanskrit to transgress etiquette, to disrespect others. So Maryada, so etiquette essentially, when we use the word, CC uses the word Maryada to refer to it, it essentially means that there are certain boundaries that frame one's behavior. So when the behavior is according to certain boundaries, then Sadhura Bhushana. So they are the ornaments of a devotee. The ornaments means that these are the just as ornaments are what make a person seem attractive. Now, there can be a person who wears ornaments and there may be no core substance. Uh, but at first glance, it's the ornaments that attract. And similarly, good qualities in the behavior is what attracts people. So, people in the initial stages, at least when we are talking about people in general, they are not going to be appreciative of devotional standards. So by no means are we saying that devotional standards are not important. They will also be discussed in our session. But behavior itself is an important criteria by which people will judge our devotion also. So people will not see the devotion as evaluated by devotional standards. People who do not value the importance of chanting will not appreciate how attentively we chant. But what people will see is, okay, if you're doing this meditation, if you're doing this chanting, how is it translating into behavior? So the Maryada Rakshan, so Sadhura Bhushan, Chaitanya Charitamrita says that acting according to proper etiquette is the bhushan, is the ornament of a sadhu. It's what makes the saintly person, a devotee, attractive in Krishna's eyes and to a large extent attractive even in the world's eyes. So we will look at three distinct purposes for proper behavior. And while looking at this, we will focus on how it relates especially to leaders. So everybody needs to behave properly, but it's all the more important for leaders. In general, whenever the question of exemplary behavior would come up, Srila Prabhupada would often quote Bhagavad Gita 3.21. Yadyadacharati shreshthas tattadevetaro janah sayat pramanam gurute lokas tadanuvartate. So yadyad acharati shreshthas, that as the shrestha, as the leaders act, tattad evetaro janah, similarly others act. Sayat pramanam gurute, whatever standards they set, lokas tad anuvartate, people emulate those standards. Now this verse comes as a part of the chapter 3 of the Gita, which is called as Karma Yoga. And therein Krishna gives multiple reasons for Arjuna why he should stick to his prescribed duty. So initially from 3.2 to 9 he talks about how premature renunciation is destructive for one's spiritual growth. Then he talks from 3.10 to 3.16 about how participation in doing one's prescribed duty ensures one's participation in the cosmic exchange of sacrifice. So that helps in maintaining cosmic order. And then from 3.17 to 3.24, Krishna talks about how by doing one's duty, a person sets an example. And so Krishna talks about loka sangraha. So he talks about the principle of setting an example, and prior to this and after this, he will give examples. So in the verse prior to this, he states in the 20th verse, Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadayah loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartum arhasi. Lok sangrahamevapi. Now lok sangraha, the normal translation that is we uses that for setting an example. But sangraha actually also means to keep together, to maintain together, to keep in place. So the society and the people in general are kept in their proper place. The world order is maintained by the proper example set by the leaders. So Krishna says over here that karmanaiva hi samsiddhim, by karma itself, Janaka and others, astita janakadayah, Janaka and others attain perfection. And therefore Arjuna, loka sangrahamevapi, for the sake of loka sangraha, for the sake of setting an example for others, sampashyan kartum arhasi. So it behooves you to act properly. And then After this verse, 20th verse gives the example of Janaka, the 21st verse gives the principle of how leaders need to act exemplarily, and then 22nd, 23rd, 24th verses give the example of Krishna himself. How he says that although I have no duty to perform, and still I do my duty. So, नमे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किंचन नानावाप्तमवाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि. So, यदि अहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रतः मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः उत्सिदेयुरिमे लोका न कुर्याः कर्म चेदहं संकरस्य च कर्ता स्याम् उपहन्यामि मा प्रजा. So Krishna uses three words where first verse he talks about how I have no duty, yet I am engaged in duty. And tandrita, I am absorbed in doing my duty, proper, very meticulously, very attentively I do my duty. And he says because people will follow in my footsteps. And if I don't act properly, then the social order will be disrupted. So that means it's so important to perform duty. So Krishna is giving two examples. Janaka's example is one who attained perfection, one of the sadhaka who attained perfection by doing karma. Now Krishna is giving himself the example. He's the Paramasiddha. He's the person who gives siddhi to everyone else. He's also setting an example. So through these two examples, Krishna says that whether one points out that whether one is a sadhaka or whether one is a siddha. What to speak of siddha? Whether one is Bhagavan himself, then one should act to set an example. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport about how people in general emulate the example of their leaders. So, in general, we are shaped by things around us. So, when a child is born, in the formative years of learning, the primary learning takes place by observing and imitating the behavior of people around oneself. So, to the extent the parents are exemplary, the child's behavior is good. The child's, Prabhupada said, the next teacher will be, a child learns from the parent, then the child learns from the teacher in school. So, the teacher's behavior also matters. And then after that, Prabhupada also, the third natural leader is the king. Now, in the growth stages from infancy, the primary learning happens by observing example of people around and imitating that example. And even when a person goes to school, at that time there is some didactic learning which happens through the teaching method. But much more than what the student learns by the didactic method from the teacher is what the student learns from the culture in the campus. And that is why we see today in colleges and universities, often the campus culture is a culture of licentiousness and degradation. And even if the structures and methods for education which the teachers follow, which the universities endorse, even if they are good, often the students don't turn out to be good because they are not influenced so much by the direct didactic teaching, by the words, as they are influenced by the example of what is happening around in the campus. So now with respect to devotees, Srila Prabhupada wanted ISKCON, he said that I have come to provide brahmanas for the society, social body, who will act as the head, guiding the others. So that means Prabhupada wanted our movement to produce leaders who would be leaders not only for our society but for the broader society at large. And naturally people will observe the behavior. So if we are to shape society substantially, then it's vital that we have both a proper behavior, we set an example and people in general will see that. Now different leaders will have different circles of influence, but everyone has some level of influence. So leadership consultants have found out that every person influences others. So they talk about even introvert people who may not seem to be very expressive or who may not be very outgoing, even such people influence others. And leadership surveys say that John Maxwell quotes in Inspiring the Leaders and Others that even the introvert person influences over a lifetime around 10,000 people. What to speak of those who are visibly in leadership positions. So that's why when people, the point which I'm making is people need an example, and they are going to see who are the sources from whom we can get examples. And when they come in touch with devotees, they will see with the devotees, and in the devotee community also they will see ordinary devotees, and they will see the leaders also. And primarily they will see the leaders. So if the leaders' behavior is exemplary, that is going to have a positive catalyzing influence on the devotee community and on the broader society at large also. So leaders need so people need example, and therefore it's the duty of leaders to set an example. That is the first point. The second point is that leaders who are preachers are all the more duty bound to set an example. There are leaders of different kinds, and there can be intellectual leaders, there can be political leaders, there can be financial leaders, and they all play the role of leadership in different ways. But when we talk about leaders who are teachers, teachers of, say, as devotees, we are teaching philosophy as a means of transforming behavior. The philosophy about the glorification of Krishna is at one level an end in itself. We simply satisfied glorifying Krishna. But at another level, the glories of Krishna are meant to inspire people to fall in love with Krishna, and then to express that love through service. So the Bhagavad Gita is not just a theoretical book of Krishna's glories, it is a transformation book that inspires devotion to Krishna. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, Karishye vachanam tava, I will do your will. So now what this means is that Krishna will actually, Krishna wants that message to transform, and Arjuna does get transformed. So similarly, we are talking about philosophy, but the primary purpose of talking about philosophy in this world is to let people understand Krishna's glory and to transform their behavior. So those who want us to transform, we who want people to transform their behavior, they need to see, they will naturally see what our behavior is. Just as a doctor who is sick will not inspire a sick person to take treatment from. No, the patient will naturally think that, oh, if this doctor is himself or herself sick, if this doctor can't cure himself or herself, then why should I take treatment? So as it is said traditionally, coming from biblical wisdom, physician, heal thyself. So if when we want to preach and we want to share Krishna's message with others, then naturally it becomes all the more important for us to have proper behavior, because this proper behavior will demonstrate to people the living example of Krishna's teachings. So as it is, as leaders we need to set example, and people are looking for exemplary leaders. But when we are going to speak that this is how we should behave, that is what our message eventually boils down to, then it's all the more important for us to model proper behavior. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciates Haridas Thakur, Advaita Acharya in the Chaitanya Charitamrita appreciates Haridas Thakur for this purpose. He says there is achar and there is prachar, and some people do achar but not prachar, others do prachar but not achar. But you do both, and therefore Jagatera Arya, you are the Arya, you are the foremost leader in the whole world. So what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is being told in Chaitanya Charitamrita here is that, this is the second point, that the blend of achar and prachar, the blend of behavior and words, is the most efficacious means of transforming people. It most efficaciously transforms people, because when people say, oh, this makes sense. So when people hear the philosophy, the reaction is it makes sense. And when people see action that is harmonious with the philosophy, then say, oh, this works. This person is actually living like this, this works. So in general, what inspires people to transform themselves is when these two aspects are taken care of. That what they hear and what they see, when both of them appeal, then that attracts their faith. Faith in order to be reasonable, has two components. It has to be sensible and it has to be verifiable. Sensible means that intellectually it appeals to us, it makes sense. And verifiable means it works. So demonstrable, so verifiable will happen when people apply it on themselves and see whether it works or not. So, but before the verifiable, our example will make it demonstrable. And when it is demonstrable, people see, oh, this person's behavior is so good. I want to become like this person. Or at least I want to know what enables the person to behave so well. So we help people in putting faith in Krishna when we present the philosophy properly, and then we behave properly also. So the proper philosophical presentation helps people to see that faith in Krishna is sensible, and the proper behavior helps people to see that faith in him is demonstrable, that oh, we can see it happening. And one of the things that attracted people to Srila Prabhupada and why Srila Prabhupada was so astonishingly successful was that he embodied both. Prabhupada was, even when he was in America or any other part of the world, he was focused on Krishna always. And he would cook for Krishna, speak about Krishna, glorify Krishna. So he was, as far as his personal devotion to Krishna was concerned, there was no doubt about that. But along with that, if he had just practiced his own devotion to Krishna, people would not have comprehended what is happening. Why is this person moving some beads? Why is this person wearing this weird dress? So if there had been only achar without prachar, Prabhupada would not have been effective. From the point of view of this world, devotion from the point of view of pleasing Krishna is always effective. But from the point of this world, there was achar and there was prachar. Prabhupada was not just absorbed in Krishna, but he was absorbed in Krishna and speaking about Krishna in a way that people could relate with. So there was prachar, and then people saw that, oh, the Swami is telling about to think about Krishna constantly, and the Swami is actually thinking about Krishna constantly. That attracted people. So the blend of behavior and words, when they are in a harmony, that transforms people the most effectively. So that is the positive side. So now we go to the third point about how improper behavior alienates people. Now, one of the biggest causes of atheism, of people going away from God, whether it is explicitly by becoming atheists or whether it is covertly, whether it is not so explicitly by just becoming what is nowadays called as apatheists. Apatheism is this school of thought which says that whether God exists or not doesn't matter. I don't care about it. In the here and now, how can we make things better? There is so much suffering, we want to deal with that. We don't have to bother about what happens in some other world. Now, apatheism is different from agnosticism, because agnosticism is an intellectual position that God is unknowable, that we can't know God, whereas apatheism is we don't care to know about God. So when people become atheists or they become apatheists, or sometimes they become anti-theists, our movement also has many enemies, people who have been disgruntled for various reasons, and then they are campaigning against us. So most of these people who go away from God, one of the biggest reasons they go away is because of improper behavior among those who are supposed to represent God. So now what happens is that people can't see God, and when they see those who are supposed to represent God behaving in inappropriate ways. Now, inappropriate ways can range over a wide spectrum. It can be simply insensitive, harsh behavior, excessive, disproportionate chastisement of others, or it can even go to the extent of immoral behavior. Srila Prabhupada in letter states that actually devotee is asking, about a particular question or whether how a devotee should behave. And Prabhupada says one should not engage in stealing or any other unethical activity because that will alienate people. So whether it is mishandling money or having some inappropriate sexual dealings, the point is that when people observe this, people come to know this, then that alienates them. So not that it gives them in fact one more reason to blaspheme Krishna. So if we consider three levels of people, say there are those people who are already away from Krishna, there are people who are fence sitters who are thinking maybe I should go towards Krishna, and there are those who are just slightly inside the fence, those who are devotees who just come in. Now if there is a leader, devotee leadership position, the devotee behaves inappropriately, then the result is those who are against Krishna, they get one more reason to blaspheme Krishna. And already actually there are many people who are hypocritical in the religious garb and doing business in the name of religion. So, and there are in the public media there are many caricatures and criticisms of such leaders which feature as movies, as books, and this improper behavior of leaders leads to aggressive, what we call anti-theists, who make it a mission to campaign against God, to blaspheme religion. Now beyond that there are those who are the fence sitters, there are the borderline people. Now they are thinking, should I do this? Should I commit myself to God or should I avoid committing? And they get one more reason to hesitate. They get one more reason to stay away. And then there are those who are inside, those who are devotees. Now, those devotees have to, because whenever they see any inappropriate behavior, then they have to combat and overcome one more attack of doubt and discouragement. If this devotee themselves not convinced, then improper behavior can cause doubts. Does this work actually? And if they are convinced intellectually, so there may not be an intellectual doubt, but still there is emotional discouragement. Oh, this devotee whom I was inspired by, why is this devotee acting like this? So in that way, apart from the damage that we cause to our own spiritual life by improper behavior, we give fodder for atheists to burn us with. We give reasons for those who are fence sitters to stay away, and we force devotees to overcome one more discouragement and doubt attack if they are to persevere in their devotion. So that's why it's vital for devotees to actually maintain proper behavior. So what proper behavior is and how that is to be maintained is an elaborate subject which will be covered only in major principles in this course, but suffice it to say that we are focusing here on 3 points in this session. We discussed what is the importance of Vaishnava Sadachara. We discussed how it is, the Prabhupada said devotees are like gentlemen. So gentleman means that there is behavior which is appreciable not only by devotional standards but also by those who are non-devotional, overall sattvic behavior, and how the etiquette that we follow, it is like the bhushana, it is the ornament which when it is on a setting of inner beauty makes the inner beauty accessible, because people see externals. So even if I say behavior is external, still behavior is what is important, and that's what will attract people to internals. And so that was the broad importance of Vaishnava Sadachara. And with respect to specific points, we discussed 3 points. First is that leaders need examples. People in general need examples, and as leaders we can serve them by setting proper example of how to live, how to behave. And they are going to choose some example or the other. So if we don't set a good example, then they will choose some other example, which usually will be a far lesser good or a negatively bad example also. And secondly, we are preaching, and people need to see harmony between what we preach and what we speak, because only that will convince them to take up this process. Then that will make the faith for them reasonable. It will be sensible. Yes, what these people are speaking makes sense. It is demonstrable. It works for them. I can see it in their life. in the way they behave, and it will work for me also. Then they'll make it verifiable. And then we discussed that otherwise improper behavior alienates people. It gives atheists further weapons to attack us with. It gives the fence-sitters reasons to stay away, and it forces devotees to fight with discouragement and doubt in order to survive in bhakti. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.